Hello and welcome to the Dollemore Daily. We are the Banks sisters, still filling in for Jesse as he settles in to Washington, D.C. here on the East Coast. I am Courtney.
I'm Keisha, and today we're going to talk about the December jobs numbers. The unemployment rate just came in at 3.9%, and there were 199,000 jobs gained.
Just under 200,000 jobs gained in December. And I think whenever an unemployment rate comes out, aren't you always just like, okay, so like, what does that mean though?
Absolutely, yeah, what does that mean in real life?
Right.
And doesn't always seem to jive necessarily with what you're hearing from the people around you.
Yeah, I think that I always forget exactly how they calculate the unemployment rate. So let's just refresh our memory on that. Basically, what it means to be considered unemployed means that you do not have a job, you are actively looking within the past 4 weeks, and that you are able to take a job if one is offered to you. Mm-hmm. And then that number is divided by the total number of jobs in the workforce?
Labor force. People in the
labor.
labor force. So people in the labor force, it turns out, start at 16 years old, which I thought it was 18, but apparently starts at 16.
I worked at Chili's when I was
a
mere 15 and a half.
Yeah, of course. Everyone had a job when they were 15 and a half, but I didn't know that the government was counting on that.
Yeah, but we pay taxes.
Oh, Lord. I guess that's true.
I
was just thinking they were counting 18-year-olds and above, I guess.
But anybody who pays taxes, I would assume, you get a W-2, I think they're going to count you.
So anyways, they're part of the labor force.
They're part of the labor force. And I think that one of the things that's tricky about the number is, 3.9% would assume that we have reached basically full employment from the pandemic, from when the pandemic began.
We were at 3.5%, I believe, before the pandemic.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. But we lost 22 million jobs when the pandemic began. So when you hear numbers like almost 200,000 jobs were created only in December, it does make you wonder, how can those numbers jive exactly?
Right, because even if we were to have gained 200,000 jobs every month, for a year, that's not anywhere near 22 million. I'm not good at math, but that's not 22 million.
Right. Other months obviously picked up a lot quicker than some, but I think the reason why we wanted to focus on this is because the way that the unemployment number is used, I don't think that it adds so much context and what the reality is for most Americans, living their everyday lives. One of the things also too with the unemployment numbers, when we're talking about the labor force, I do think that the 3.9% gets a bit tricky there, because when you're talking about the labor force within the past year, through the pandemic, unfortunately, we've lost almost 900,000 Americans due to COVID. So even if we're being generous and talking about the workforce, let's say, 450,000 of those people were directly in the workforce. Then on top of that, you have about 2 million people who just retired early.
Right. A lot of people made that decision.
Yeah. So that already cuts that labor force number dramatically in such a quick period of time. And basically, please feel free to correct us. We're all learning here together, guys.
But on top, so then to correlate with that is this 4 weeks number, which we both thought was very interesting, having filed for unemployment ourselves. But they're only counting you as being looking for work if you look for work within the last 4 weeks. That seems like a very short amount of time. Anything could happen. You could just stop, looking for work for a week or two because you got sick, and then, you forgot to report, or no one came to ask you whether or not you were looking for work, because they don't count it based off of the information that you put into your unemployment insurance claim. Ooh, that's a mouthful.
This is where it gets tricky, because what about something like a COVID surge? What if you weren't looking because no one's going to be hiring in the first place because there's a COVID surge in your area? When the pandemic began, you didn't have to actually fill. Where we lived in California, they basically said, don't worry about filling in all of this extra information. We basically know that everyone's losing their job because of COVID. They made it an easy option for you to select on the website, and that's how that was counted.
I was a recruiter at the time, and every place that I called was on a hiring freeze. So why would you even have looked for a job? If you're...
Exactly.
Yeah. And then by then you're off the roster. And so then those numbers are decreasing. It just seems like some tricky math.
It's some tricky math. And I think that there's some other things in there that we've noticed just from moving back home with our parents. Like, we never went to Walmart before, in Los Angeles. But I've definitely noticed Walmart and CVS. I think the pandemic has very much accelerated their use of automation. So you'll notice, I think, in a lot of stores with self-checkout, and I think that the pandemic has led to this easy excuse to say, oh, well, we're just trying to be healthy. We're trying to be safe. We're trying to put in safety protocols. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, okay, I did not sign up to do a shift at CVS. All right.
You've already spent all of your time going and shopping for the groceries, and then you have to also bag your own groceries.
I have coupons I need help with.
Exactly. Well, I mean, I think there's even another more nefarious kind of piece to this, is Amazon. Amazon is like secretly opening, there's one opening in DC for sure, but secretly opening all of these stores that don't require any people to work there really, except for to stock the shelves.
Right.
You go in and the cart is scanning things for you. So, I mean, this is just something to think about long term.
Because what does that mean in terms of permanent job loss? I think that these are positions that we're not taking into consideration. And also other things just being seasonal, a lot of seasonal jobs moving to online or moving into a lot of things moving to obviously delivery into that sector, but it's not easy to make those transitions from if you used to work in the mall.
Right, exactly.
to delivering stuff for the mall.
Well, I mean, it's also not easy to make the transition from if you had a full-time 9-to-5 job to then driving for Uber or driving for DoorDash or something like that. First of all, how do you even do your taxes? I mean, are you counted? I mean, I guess you're counted as a gig worker. You get a 1099, but like a lot of people aren't even used to that. So, I mean, that's kind of a piece of it too that I don't know if they even get counted as employed because they're not technically full-time employed and you kind of work how you want.
Well, there are some part-time employees that do get counted within the unemployment numbers because basically it's like a survey that they go around and they ask people, you guys, the way they do this is crazy.
Who's doing this? We've never been surveyed. Who's doing these surveys?
Have y'all been surveyed?
Please tell us you've been surveyed.
I mean, I think that all of this complicatedness is to say that I think it would be a mistake for Democrats to kind of focus on bolstering this and bragging about this unemployment rate because I don't think that people are feeling that in their lives. Especially right now when you've got a lot of inflation happening, you've got gas prices raising, not to the fault of Biden, but obviously whoever is president is going to be blamed with that. And so I think people are not feeling economically secure, and especially with just new surges of Omicron happening, a lot of people are choosing not to go back to work at all. And so that's why when we're talking about this, 3.9% rate, it's very difficult to believe.
I think it could be really construed by normal citizens as a slap in the face because if all of the information that you're taking in is saying the unemployment rate is so good right now, the stock market is so great, everything's going great, I don't know what's wrong with you guys, the economy is doing great. That puts something in your own head and you're thinking like, wait, well, how come I haven't found a job? Or should I be looking for a job? Or what should I be doing? And it's feeding something that the Democrats could be really honing into because one thing that they hugely missed, as we all know, was going after poor people. I mean, poor people could be a huge part of their base, but I think
you mean for their votes.
For their votes.
They have gone after them in other ways.
I'm sorry, trying to get the votes of poor people. It's like, if you think about, I mean, they just have not, they've been focusing so much on suburbia.
Upper middle class.
And college educated people and all of that. I mean, if they were to just take literally 1 second and say, you know what? I see that this job report came out and it looks really good, but I know that you guys are still struggling. I know that people are out there still concerned. I mean, that would really endear them to a lot of people, I think.
Yeah, I think that's right on the money because as a person who has had to, if you're a person who's had to be in that system, and so many Americans have because of the pandemic, but the even crazier thing is so many other Americans haven't just because of the way that the system is set up for unemployment insurance is so terrible that the system has missed a lot of people. And so I think, you've got to, it really is annoying for the average person to hear about these kind of things that kind of really only affect, the top level of society, I guess you could say, and to feel, just basically overlooked. And I think the Democrats, if you want to start winning votes, let's start seeing people, people and seeing these kind of
Opportunities.
opportunities, but also
Yeah.
issues, that you can turn into solutions. I mean, with automation,
Absolutely.
I feel like I don't hear enough people talking about it, and I
think
really
about
do
it.
worry about it.
Andrew Yang was one of the only people who spoke about it, way back when during the primaries or what have you, and he was basically laughed off the stage. But if you would ask normal people, they would say, I mean, they work at the Walmart. They can see that, like, oh yeah, like only 3 people are on this shift. I mean, it's something that I think real people are talking about, and I think that it's a place where the Democrats could maybe make some huge gains.
You guys just let us know what you think about it. Do you think the unemployment rate really reflects how you're feeling about the economy right now, about how you feel in your life, in your job? I will say, I think thankfully some of the wages have gone up for some of the I guess they would be called lower skilled jobs that we had, waitresses, bartenders, the hospitality crew. Wages have gone up with that because there have been so much more worker strength and leverage.
Right, a lot of unions, a lot of strikes. I mean, this year was
Right.
definitely the year of workers' rights, I think. Even if it was in a small way, I think that some gains were made. But
Yeah, does it feel real to you?
Does
Why don't
it,
you let
right,
us
like,
know?
does it feel real? Exactly.
Once again, guys, I've been Courtney Banks. You can follow me on Twitter at Courtney Banks, talking a lot of bull, of course, and on Instagram at the Courtney Banks, and we share our lovely YouTube channel and all of our opinions on our YouTube called The Banks Sisters.
And I've been Keisha. You can find me briefly on Twitter at one of these Keishas, and also on Instagram. And you can always check out our podcast, which is called This Is Bullshit.
Thanks, guys, and we'll see you soon, Jesse. Have a good one.
Bye.